Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Narat Saraman, and today I will be talking about InsurTech, and the topic is digital ID, blockchain insurance use cases. But before we get to the content, let me start by giving you a quick background about myself. I am the president of the Association of Thai Software Industry. I also have other positions as a committee member of Digital Council of Thailand and also a committee member of the Computer Association of Thailand under the royal patronage. And personally, I am in cybersecurity business. I am a founder and a managing director of Global Technology Limited. It's a Thai company that develops cybersecurity products under the brand called Saraman. And this is our 19th year for Saraman brand. And my topic today is digital ID, blockchain insurance use cases. And why do I want to talk about this topic today is because today's seminar is talking pretty much about InsurTech or using technology in insurance. But before I get to my topic, I have something to share with you to begin with. Thailand at the moment, we are developing country. We are falling into developing country trap for a long time. We have been held there. And one of the reasons that we are still there and we cannot get into the developed country section is the technology. It is undeniable that to help increasing the value for a company or to help improving our country's GDP, technology is crucial, especially in order to support the businesses and even to create more values. For example, let's talk about my age then. Thinking about 50 years ago, when you talk about major companies, who do you think about? 50 years ago, those are oil and gas companies, department stores, or automobile. Those big industries. But today, when you talk about high value company, like 80 or 90% on the top 10 are tech company like Google and Apple and Amazon. Those are technology companies. They use software to help create more values and things to create even more value. Standalone hardware like computer and mobile phones. Yes, it had its own value, but it is not as much as added value from other technologies. iPhone, for example. If it's just functional phone, it doesn't really going to be this much value, but because of the software and applications, that's why it is more valued. I would like to show you this picture. This is what I would like to share with you today. This is the timeline that will bring me to my point. 50 years ago, we got to know ATM card for the first time. But since 50 years ago, was ATM that popular? No. It has become popular just only within the last 30 years, especially a credit card. Part of the reason is maybe because of the network system, but the key thing or the key issue that people didn't use these kind of cards was trustworthiness. Like, old-fashioned people, they didn't want to use this kind of plastic card to get cash from the machine. They really want to see the actual teller, not the machine, to be sure that they really get their money. Or at least they just wanted to talk to the teller. That's how they feel more comfortable. That's the issue about the trustworthiness of the system. Next, a few years later, the world got to know Internet. Internet was an integral part that changed our world and the world we see today. Major companies we see today, especially the highest value company, most of them are here because of Internet. They are not just technology, but they also rely on the Internet. And Internet existed 50 years ago, but it feels like it's just very recently. And you know why? Because we have just seen a change at the basic infrastructure level, the investment, the connectivity, and the contents. Because it changed from the foundation and up. That's why we started to see the big changes. And the third one is iPhone. But actually, I didn't want to mean iPhone. I just want to talk about the smart devices. But the one that really sparked up the smart devices trend was iPhone. Before iPhone, we had many smart devices like BlackBerry. BlackBerry was actually a kind of smart devices, like Palm or other handheld devices was there years before BlackBerries. How come it faded out? They became obsoleted because of iPhone. Part of the reason is because of the software. And it must be more flexible to allow other people to help collaborate and further develop the ecosystem. iPhone was the one who started that and allow others to help them. BlackBerry didn't do that. They developed everything by themselves and they didn't have that flexibility. They didn't have other people to help them develop their applications. That thing we call like landscape, right? Maybe it was the landscape issue at that time. And the next step, in the next year, the world knew about blockchain. But the majority of people, they normally think about blockchain in terms of Bitcoin, but it's not just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not the technology itself. Bitcoin is the digital currency that used blockchain technology. Now, blockchain was another, I would call it a fundamental change. It was another fundamental change, so it took time before we could change the whole landscape to the next level. But it didn't take that long. It won't take that long before we start to see more blockchain users. It wouldn't be too long from now. And the last part in my timeline is what I use the word now. Everybody says mobile first at the moment, but mobile in this case is not just mobile phone. It's all those smart devices, and including smartwatches. And in the next few steps, we might see the smart glasses, like the one that Facebook collaborate with Ray-Ban to produce one. And these kind of glasses might be able to do more than what we could imagine in the future. Another key driver that accelerate the technological landscape change is the occurrence of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, COVID-19 pandemic spread around the world and it caused changes in the way of working and our way of life. We have never thought that work from home would arrive this early. We never imagined that we could join the meeting from our home, just like today. Normally, I would have been standing on a stage, but today I am talking to you through a screen. And for me, I am not very familiar with this. Every time I do this, I say that I'm not very good at this. I am never used to this screen, but this is the new normal. Now, the part where we really need to change, where we need to adapt, where everyone needs to adapt, allow us to create a new landscape. To work from home, for example, or to communicate with other people, or even to sign off something. The most important part is the trustworthiness, right? So let's say if we want to approve my procurement team, for example, to create a contract, how can I approve the process like normally do? And how can I be sure that the person I approve of is really my staff? That leads us to digital ID. But as the world is changing to a more technological related world, technology has helped us improve the way we work. And in that sense, we also need to think about trust again. It's about trust issue again in this era. How can we be so sure? How can we gain trust? How can we be so sure that if I do this, it will be safe? If somebody who wants to steal our identity or who wants to ruin our transaction, how can we prevent that? Or governments around the world start launching many technological acts and many computer related regulations like electronic transactions, for example. In Thailand, we actually started many years ago, like since 1997, and then we launched the first act in 2001 because the prevalence of email. People use more email, especially contacting with our partner or customers in other country. In the past, we used to send facsimile, right? But nowadays, we only send email. And the contract is sealed. So we created law to help guarantee that the email is, I would say, it works. It's good enough to confirm the contract between you and your counterparty. But as the technology change, as there are more advancement in technologies, as technology become more efficient, people who use these devices or technology will increase. And again, all regulators and governments need to prepare more measures to prevent problems. And in Thailand, we started our Computer Act in BE 2550, and it was amended only 3 years, 4 years ago. And we have seen many ministry orders. For example, they even control the computer traffic. For example, there must be a way to verify if you really do this in the computer system or this transaction is your. This is one of the way to gather all of this collection data in order to use it in case of things when it goes to the court. So our government also in improving their regulations accordingly. But on the other hand, for the consumer, we also have the Personal Data Protection Act to keep you rest assured whenever you use whatever platform, your data will not be misused or without your permission. And we also have Cyber Act that just came in to help regulate the cyber users and to ensure safety. So, and this comes to my topic today. When we work, for example, and we want to complete certain business process, the most important thing is how can we be so sure or how can we verify the person. From ETDA or the digital regulator, they launched a regulation. In the past, we say that email is good enough to verify that, but lately we haven't been quite sure if it is a real person or not. So ETDA or ETDA launched several measures for digital signature or digital ID. They say that if they want to make sure that it's verifiable, especially for transaction that is important, there must be 3 more components. As you can see on the screen. First, the digital signature must be linked to a person. It must be identifiable. Second, the data that we use to generate this digital signature is under the regulations, which means it's not any intermediary who can verify your signature. You must be the one who controls that. And thirdly, changes must be detectable in terms of your signature. But this is the part where blockchain could come in to help you verify. Blockchain can help us solve this pain point, so let me share with you how. One of the most important parts in the transaction, it consists of 2 parts. Just like what I told you about ATM. For ATM, you need your card and then your 4-digit PIN code to verify that you are the owner of this card and this account. And you verify yourself by using your PIN code. For computer, when you want to log into the system or when you want to use a platform to do any kind of transaction, you need to verify and authenticate yourself. You need to prove yourself that you are the owner of that account. So you need to log in, basically, and it will link you to your identity. And this is the authentication process via the passwords. But in this time, filling username and password or basic login is not enough. People start talking about something else, like multi-factor authentication. Like in the past, we used ATM and PIN code. That's only 2 factors authentication, right? But nowadays, we are using what's called, again, many factors, many more factors, more than 3 factors actually. And one of that must be encrypted. So this is how we can improve the security. And all of this can be done using blockchain. Now, many of you might ask, what exactly is the blockchain thing? So I believe that many of you already know about this. But some of you or many might not understand. So let me share with you a very simple graphic in this page. The reason why it is called blockchain and why it is more secure. The basic architecture of blockchain is the fact that it creates so many blocks. Like, think of it as a box that collects your data. And whenever there's a change, whenever there's a transaction happening with that particular block, we will include the data in that box. So you will see that we are filling in the data in these boxes. But to make sure that they are secure, whenever there's a new transaction, rather than keeping a data at just one place, like centralized system, we distribute it. For example, in this picture, you can see that there are 4 nodes in the net, right? A, B, C, D. Whenever you start a transaction, all of these 4 nodes will record this transaction. This is just an example, a simplified transaction, a simplified example, but there are still many examples. But all of these are randomized too, not just collecting all and everything. Sometimes it is randomized. Sometimes there are A to Z blocks or nodes. And we will random that it will be ABCD who will get this transaction record. And sometimes we call this mining. If you have heard about Bitcoin mining, this is part of the mining process. This is one of the way we can create a node and distribute the nodes and data to different nodes to collect the data from the transaction of this particular box. And that's how we create blockchain. So whenever we see a new transaction, like in the picture, like from 100, then minus 50, B from 100 plus 50, for example. When we see this kind of transaction, there will be certain nodes who realize that the transaction is happening and they will verify among themselves. And then we can see a new value or a new data in that particular block. And it has been chained together. That's why it becomes blockchain. And I believe the second graphic can make you see another example, like from ABCD, like from 100, all ABCD, 100, 100, 100, 100. Whenever there's a transaction and the transaction has been verified in the chain, you will see the data adding in and update the data in the second block. And the transaction continues, and you can see more transaction through the chain in the next blocks. That's why we call it blockchain. Now, how can we apply blockchain to digital ID? In the previous example, we have seen how let me go back a few pages. How can we follow these regulations so it can be verifiable and authenticatable. And it must follow all of these regulations. And if we use the blockchain to create our own digital ID, all right, first it is under this structure. And let's say I added this data in my mobile phone. I want to use this signature to verify myself. First, it collected in my phone, right? So this is number 2. This is under the system. I verify my own signature from my end. And then the next step is verification process. So that's where blockchain come into play. If you remember that your data is collected in the block and then it can be verified through other ledgers and transactions. So this is how blockchain fits in with these criteria. And is it really suitable to this work? As I said since from the beginning, this is what I call mobile first, right? And blockchain can really be turned into any kind of application in your mobile phone and then create your digital ID in your mobile phone. And once you get this digital ID in your mobile phone, which first you own it and you own the mobile phone, and then you want to complete the transaction, you can use it to verify yourself and authenticate your transaction. Like the word mobile first, and it's not just mobile phone, right? It can be any kind of smart devices. It can be a smartwatch, for example. It can be an app in it, for example. Now, if we can use blockchain like this, it will change the whole landscape for insurtech. There are many studies, and it has been included in this picture. When digital ID, which can help us verify both the insurer and the insured, and even any other part, once it is verifiable, we can complete all kind of transaction on whatever and any platform possible, as long as there's a system like this. Like for example, if you want to buy a life insurance, for example, or let's say health insurance, in the time where we only work from home, maybe the agents can send the information to the prospects so they can make a decision whether if they want to buy it or not. So that's the beginning. So you send the data to your customer, and let's say you are the customer, you want to buy the insurance, you can be sure that it really comes from a valid agent because of that digital ID. And then we can confirm back in the system that you want to purchase that insurance, and they can verify your purchasing order. And it can be cross-checked from two parties. This is one of an example that allow us to create a new landscape for InsurTech in the near future. But what I really want to see as a part of a tech company and also a president of the club, what I really want to see is the collaboration between the public and private sectors. In the past, let me share with you some example, like BlackBerry phone or many other devices. It wasn't success for a long time because the innovation was limited. It was so-called monopolized. And I do not want to see any monopoly in any kind of technology. There shouldn't be just one player who can do certain things or certain techs. No, I don't think so. Therefore, the government, who is the biggest purchasing power in this country, technically speaking, and they are also regulators. They are a very important part to help us create collaborations and development and innovation and innovator within our country. I really want to see more unicorns in Thailand from this. And at that day, Thailand might become one of the biggest brands like Huawei or Samsung. Maybe we can create a brand called Siam brand or something from Thai people. That's it for my presentation today. And in conclusion, I believe that under the Secretary General, I strongly believe that the OIC will steer towards his vision and direction, and we will see the InsurTech new landscape very soon. And on behalf of the Software Association, if there's anything that we can help, we gladly serve. Thank you very much.